Hello. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody here to the 10 a.m. Our presenter today is Megan Steva. She is a facilities data analyst in the Facilities Information and Technology Services Department at The Ohio State University. She manages a database that tracks spaces and buildings on both the academic campus and medical center and is continually striving to improve the data and make it more valuable to more users. I'll hand it over to Megan.
Good morning. Okay, so yeah, you pretty much got an overview of what I do. So I'm going to hopefully explain. I just like learning from other universities how they do their space data, like what their methods are, what kind of stuff they track, how they get their data. So that's basically all this is for Ohio State. It's just an overview of how we do it. So who we are in our department and at OSU. We have 5 regional campuses, and 4 of those are co-located with a technical college that we share a campus with. And then we also have Stone Lab up there in Lake Erie. It is a research lab on an island in Lake Erie, so that's a fun place to go. We have a lighthouse up there. And our Worcester campus is primarily agricultural. They have tons of farmland, greenhouses. So we have a little bit of everything. In terms of people at Ohio State, you can see our numbers here. We have a huge campus, a lot of people, a lot of students, a lot of staff. So we don't necessarily track a lot of people with what I do. Our med center utilizes our space data to track where their occupants and research PIs are, but that's something that they do. In terms of facilities, here's our numbers here. And when I say the Columbus campus, this does not include our medical center. Our medical center, both on campus and all of its satellite locations, are considered its own campus. So for these numbers, Columbus is just the main campus side. But yeah, we have 38 million plus gross square feet among all of our campuses. We just bumped up our gross square feet, our Revit number, because we are finishing up the Ohio Stadium, which is massive. So we've converted that over to Revit. Again, 16,000 acres, but a lot of that is up at our Worcester campus on that farmland. So I am part of the Facilities and Information Technology Services team known as FITS. We are located underneath the University Architect, which is in the Planning and Real Estate Department here, which is under the broader group of Administration and Planning. Administration and Planning includes our public radio station, public safety, parking and traffic, real estate, and then you can see some of the other groups in our real estate office. And we have a hierarchy of who's in my department and just some of the main things that I do. My biggest responsibility is managing the database. We've done a lot of updates to it in the 3 years that I've been at OSU. And I also work a lot primarily with the Med Center. I do all kinds of reports for pretty much anybody who asks for data. Now I'll go through a little bit of what we do with space management. Okay, we have a little bit of everything, as I said. We have a massive hospital system. This one up here is James Cancer Hospital. It's over a million square feet. It is just for cancer patients. We have a veterinary hospital that not only does patient care, but also research. We have lots of student life, and then this one here is University Hall. This was our first building on campus. And I had to include this photo. I just took it last week. We donated one of our buildings that we were getting rid of to the fire department, so I wanted to use that photo somewhere. So yeah, I went out and took a bunch of pictures of the fire. So in terms of buildings, some of the data is data that we track and gather ourselves, and then sometimes we also just house data for other departments. So for buildings, we do all the main stuff, address, square footage, drawing type, whether it's AutoCAD, Revit, or none. Our building assessor calculates FCI scores on all of our buildings, so we've started tracking that. Ownership, whether we own the building, whether we own it but lease it out, whether we lease it from somebody else. Dates, we have the original construction date, or if we bought the building, we have the acquisition date. costs, we have the original investment costs, we have replacement costs. In terms of spaces, we have lots more data there, but that in the space is where we tend to house a lot of data that isn't necessarily our data. But we also track, like, when we lease spaces out to other groups. In our hospital, we have a bunch of restaurants that we lease out space. We also track a lot of buildings that aren't required to be tracked for FICM or what we have in Ohio, HEI. We have to do annual reports for HEI, all the public schools do, where we basically send in every building we have, every space that we have, but there's things that they don't consider buildings, but we still track them for either asset management, for maintenance, or also that we include them on our GIS map. And the thing that I use to track everything, our website is called SIMS, Space Information Management System. It was created by Evolve FM, and we've pretty much customized it to exactly what we want and need. So here's just a screenshot of, there's all these different modules that you see that I have access to. Most of our viewers do not have access to all of this, but we have a little bit of everything in there. We've just recently moved our archive data projects over there. We have unique space IDs for every single space, even every janitor closet, every patient room toilet, everything's in there. It consists of the building ID, the floor, and the room number. And here's a screenshot from the floor plans. And anything that we have a drawing for is available in this. And then you can do really cool things with theming. Almost any data attribute that we have, you can theme the floor plan by that. So here it's themed by organization, who owns that space. We also then, down below, you can see we have all of that same space data listed. So you can either, I use this for wayfinding a lot. If I'm going to a building that I'm not familiar with, I'll go in and find the room and find it in the floor plan so I know where I'm going. And some of the customized things that we've done within this database, we've created a lot of customized reports. Here's a sample of a space data error report that shows anytime we're missing required data, such as room type or function or org. This shows us any space and where it's missing that data. So then we can go out and find what we're missing. We can easily add any data attributes that we want, either to space or buildings. So if there's something new we want to start tracking, we can easily just go in there, add that, and fill it. Like we added our FCI composite score, and then some of the other things are things other people requested. One thing we've done is in our research bays, we have some large research labs, so we've split up the research bays into individual spaces. So that way, if you have multiple PIs within one research lab, you can assign which bays you want to which PI. Within any of the data grids, you can do a customized search. You can filter by up to 5 filters, which I've never had to do that. And we also have a space data handbook that we've created for any of our users. We don't go by the traditional 3-digit FICM code. We've created our own, but all of these roll up to that FICM code. And I've got a sample. So we have it online, and we send it out whenever we add an OSU user or anybody, we send them this handbook. So we've just got definitions of every type of function, of every type of room type. And one other thing that I'll show you here in a moment. We then also have this room type compatibility matrix, which shows not every room type can be used with every function. So this shows you what room type is allowed to be used with what function. Anything that's darkened in is allowable. So obviously a food facility, you're not, well, actually, that's more for merchandising. So yeah, you're not going to have that like as a classroom or instruction. Oh, one thing I did want to mention back here. One thing we did was we had functions, which is more of the large scale definition of the space, and then we go down then to room types. And then about 10 years ago, we also added subroom types for a lot more granularity. So like within office, then we might have faculty office, staff office, grad student office, office service, break room, all that kind of thing. We allow pretty much anybody in OSU, any staff or faculty, to have access to SIMS. They do have to request access to get into it, but we allow just about anybody. And we have users all over campus, and almost every department probably using SIMS. All of our data is considered public, so we can, if somebody outside of the university asks for data, most likely we will probably give them the data, but we will probably not give them the drawings unless they have some valid reason. And then we also break all of our SIMS users into different types, and the majority of them are just going to be viewers, so they can go in there and look at anything, but they can't mess with any data. We have space editors, so that's like some of our student employees, if we just have them going in to update data. In the Med Center, we have people editors where they can go in and edit their own occupants. Like I said, we just moved over our archive projects, so we do give access to archive projects to outside consultants, like A&Es and people like that. So we have to give them OSU credentials, though, to be able to access it. And one way we go about, or a few ways we go about updating data. The primary thing that I do on the Med Center side is building audits. The Med Center, we have a service line agreement with them. So every year they give me a list of buildings that they want audited, and I go out and walk them. It's about 1.5 to 2 million gross square feet. And obviously I don't actually walk that much, but I do actually go through every hallway and verify who's using the room and how it's being used. Quite often, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, you have all of a sudden a conference room is now a break room, or people change things without ever telling you. So that's how we catch that. On the academic side, they tend to do most of their audits in the summer when the buildings are empty with student employees. And Student Life just kind of does their own thing. We trust them with their data, so they just send us a list whenever a building gets updated, and then we just import that into SIMS. We have a lot of MOUs between colleges if they're sharing space or borrowing space. Right now, our dentistry building is undergoing a massive renovation, so they've moved a lot of their people into one of the medical center buildings. So we have a lot of MOUs about exactly how long they get the space, who's paying for it, and such. Anytime we have change in leadership with new deans or anything like that, we tend to have a lot of people moves. All of a sudden, they have to reorganize everything to make it their own. One thing our academic side deals with a lot is renovations, trying to find swing space. So that's something you can just go into the data and you can look for vacant space, find out where do you have space to put people. And then a lot of times we just hear by word of mouth or walking around, driving around, finding out what's going on. One of my coworkers one day on his way into work, he came in and said, oh, hey, by the way, they demolished like 3 buildings over on such and such road, which nobody had told us about. So that's a big thing. Our Med Center has their own system called eServices, and it's pretty nice. It goes through a process in the Med Center where it goes through a space committee. Any renovations, any moves, any just org switches, all has to go through them. If it gets approved, it goes then to our architectural services team if there's any floor plan changes. Once they're done, it comes to me, and I edit the data, and then the ticket gets closed out. And they have different kinds of requests that are very specific, or you can just do a miscellaneous one if it's something unorthodox. And we have most of our, I think I said 83% of our drawings are in Revit, which is very nice. They're nice, good drawings. They're accurate, as long as people tell us when they need to be updated. So we just pull all of that data, all those floor plans into SIMS, and they come along with their space ID. They come along with their assignable square footage, with gross square footage. If the room number hasn't changed, then it keeps all the data it had before. If it's a new space, then obviously we need to go out and find that data. We would like to get to the point where SIMS then can push that data attached to the rooms back into Revit. We are not there yet, but that's something we're working towards. Okay, some other just miscellaneous projects and things we're doing. We have 360 photos, which I mentioned this in my talk yesterday. I got inspired by a CFTA talk. Somebody mentioned they were doing 360 photos for their EHS team, going in and taking photos of labs. So our architectural services team bought 360 photos for their students. When they go out and verify rooms, they just take a quick 360 photo. They can go back to their desk and see everything. So based off of that CFTA talk, I thought, well, there's a whole lot more you could do with that. So I bought a tripod and went out and started taking pictures. And we got our vendor on this to get, we got free source code and put it into the database. And so now you can go in and look at any room across campus that we have a photo of, just from your desk. So this is our band room at the stadium. I try not to get people in the photo, but obviously sometimes you do. My goal at first was to do public spaces like elevator lobbies, patient waiting rooms, some of the museums and stuff like that we have on campus. Now our med center has really latched onto it, and they are wanting to use these photos for a lot of refresh projects or renovations. So I've gone in, anytime we have a new wing of the hospital that's undergone a renovation, I try and get in there before the patients move in and get photos. So it's a really nice tool. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the people looking at it. One of our campus planners just the other day was saying she was talking to somebody about a renovation, a potential renovation. So she was able to bring up the photo at her desk and understand exactly what the person was talking about. And the nice thing too, you can stop it, you can pan up, look at the ceiling, look at the floor. You can zoom in and out. It's not the highest resolution if you're in a really large room, but it's pretty decent. You can see all the architectural features. You can see where the doors are. You can see windows, what kind of doors, if they're full doors, if they have glass partitions in the door. And let me show you one other nice one, what our med center did. We have way too many buildings. And obviously, the better your Wi-Fi, the better our database works. Hopefully this will come up in a moment. There we go. So if we have a photo of the room, you'll see a thumbnail of it. Maybe? Okay. Nope. Okay, so you can see any room that has a photo will have a thumbnail of it. So here's one of our ORs. So they can even use that to see what kind of equipment they have in the OR, how big the OR is, if it's looking outdated. So again, you can pan around at any time. See everything, put it back into rotation. So this is actually turning into a lot better tool than we had even thought it would be when we started doing it. A lot of people are using it for all kinds of different projects. So that's one thing we're pretty proud of. Okay, and then some of the other things that we track, we had a small terrorist attack a couple years ago. After that, a lot of departments started putting in meditation or religious spaces, so now we're tracking that. So if students want to know where they are, they can find them. We're tracking restroom genders. We didn't have many of them filled in, we just had that they were restrooms. So now we're seeing if they're men, women, or gender neutral. That was my student's project last summer. She basically had to walk the whole campus and find every restroom that did not have a gender attached and do this. So we've had a lot of requests from different diversity councils and stuff like that for a list of all those gender-neutral restrooms. We have signage issues whenever we're out walking spaces. You can see somebody hand altered one of the signs to correct it. So anytime we see that, we can contact the people in charge of signage. In our James Hospital, it's got 23 floors, maybe. But for some reason that has a lot of history to it, they did not use the architectural room number for the patient room number. So if somebody calls into service to facilities and says, patient room 2110 needs, new light bulbs, they weren't able to look that up to see where they were actually going. So my manager, Joe, did a project where he did a crosswalk between all those architectural room numbers and patient room numbers. So service to facilities, anytime anybody comes in, they now can put in either room number and the person's gonna know where they are. So we do things like patient room numbers, if it's like OR4, exam room 2. So it's used primarily in the medical center. I also started tracking board of trustee names, which our advancement people are now utilizing. So anytime I get a resolution that a board named a space after somebody, then I have its own field in that. So here's one from our vet hospital. We had one recently that somebody just named. It had 11 pets' names in it. So I was really hoping to get that, but it was in an area I couldn't access. So I feel sorry for those sign people. Okay, and our GIS map then pulls out all of our space data and floor plans from our database and pulls it into the GIS map. Anybody in the public can see the top photo up there. They can get that basic building data, see where it is, see the address, see a photo of it. And then if you have an OSU login, you can see a lot more data. So if I'm looking for Derby Hall, so anybody can see this. But then if I want to find out the space data about it, okay. Okay. Well, no. Okay, so here's what you get. You can see that floor plan, and you can theme it by any of those categories we have. So here I themed it by room type, so you can see which ones are the classrooms, the offices. And then if you click on an individual space, you can get all that basic space data in our GIS map. So all of our systems, we've made them so they can work together. We get the Revit drawings from the architecture department. We pull those into SIMS. And then our GIS maps pulls all that space data into their map. We recently, just this past winter, brought in all of our archive projects into SIMS. It was in its own website before, and it was not very secure from an IT standpoint. It also wasn't terribly user-friendly, so we brought all of those in, which was a massive project. But here, I threw these photos in because this is the original Ohio Stadium. These are all hand-drawn. And the level of detail in these is incredible, and they're just pretty to look at. So she has our archive data manager. She has over 230,000 plans and documents in SIMS. And it uses that same basic data that we have, the building number. But she also has outside or non-building assets like bridges, utilities, stuff like that. So we had to add some features to get those in there. And these are just weird things I've seen doing building audits. One of our med center buildings has an iron lung in the hallway because they can't physically get it out of the building. So it's just sitting in the hallway. Over in the faculty wing, office wing of the vet hospital, you're always going to find pets over there. We have some outdated telephone booths that obviously nobody is using anymore. One office, we found some massive Italian Renaissance art. just sitting there. So, yeah, so you get to see some fun stuff when you do the building audits. Okay, things we're looking to do in the future is always continue to grow and show our value. The more university users that we can reach and show them what we can offer them, the better our data is going to be too, because we're going to be hearing back about that. We did a new, the vendor did a new web interface on our SIMS database, which added the ability to use it on a tablet. So now all of our facility people can go out into the field with the floor plans right there on their tablet, or with the data, which has been really helpful. We are looking to add classroom technology assets. They want to add data to spaces such as, does this room have a blackboard, a whiteboard, are the light switches, or are they motion sensor? We also want to, I think our engineering department wants to add floor finishes. So again, the more we can bring value to other people, the more people that use it, the better it is for us. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Yeah?
You said you do the building replacement costs?
Yes.
So do you track your construction history then for the different additions on the building and the square footage of it?
For the building replacement cost that we track in here, that comes from our building assessors. We basically give them all of our data, space data, with room types, and they have a calculation with both, for classrooms, it's this cost per square footage, for labs, it's this cost per square footage, and that's what that's determined for. Our university archivist does house basically all the projects and data, but we are not necessarily a project management tool, if that makes sense. Is that what?
Okay. We actually track construction history, so we know exactly the year
Okay.
and the area and the square footage of each addition, and because each addition is built in a different year, the construction materials are completely different.
Okay.
You have something built in 1800, it could be brick, stone, versus something that was built in 2008.
Mhm.
It's all, chipboard and steel studs. It's a totally different cost, and I was just curious because you said you do building replacement, because if the building burns down,
Mm-hmm.
for each section of that building, it's a different replacement cost because of the materials that the building is constructed out of. So I was just curious how you do that replacement, if you actually track it by addition,
Mhm.
the square footage based off of the year that it was built in construction materials, or if you actually, or how you do it. Because I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That you did by addition,
That-
so I was curious how you did it.
I'm not as familiar with all like the construction, all the archive documents or construction materials. Basically, the replacement cost that we have in here is used primarily by our insurance to see if they have enough coverage on it. I don't know if our manager Joe, if he has any more.
It's based on use, not on how it was built. It's purely, the replacement cost is purely based on, you're using it for this purpose, it would cost this amount of money to replace that purpose, so we don't care how it was built.
We do have, in the archive documents, we do have the completion date. But that's about, to my knowledge, that's the extent of what we have. So, any other questions?
On the 360 photos,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, are those geo-referenced or featured?
They are, the 360 photos are not geo-referenced. One thing we do want to do is get our vendor to add a date mark so we know when they were done, so if there's renovations. We basically rename the file name of each photo to the space ID, so it's attached at that level, but not with a GPS location or anything like that.
Okay.
So.
Can you comment on those? Can you?
We can add comments. So like if we have multiple photos, like if we have like a zigzag hallway, I can take multiple photos and then I can add a comment. This is like at the north end of the hallway. This is the south end of the hallway, or I can add any other comments I want. One thing we do need to look at is how to archive those. Since it's a new project, I've not yet gotten into that. But once we start doing those renovations and refresh projects, some of our people don't want to lose the before pictures. So one thing I'm going to have to look at is how to keep all those old pictures.
So the comments happen actually inside the 360 realm, and then would
Let me see, if I can remember one of the photos that we have. But it just comes up, like, when you see that little pop-up, there'll be something at the bottom of that that says, whatever comments you put in. I'm trying to remember one of the buildings I did that.
Sounds like your spread is something like Adobe's sticky note type of thing, where you can put a point there and comment.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So when this comes up, when this space comes up, there's a comment down here under the flat file, where it says, like, I have here main hallway. So you can put anything. If you wanted to put further notes, like when a refresh was done or something like that, you can. We do it when we load the photos. It's not editable by anybody else, but we can edit them at any time.
But I couldn't like use a tablet pen and circle that doorknob there and say, it's broken.
Not in our space database. You cannot edit it there. You can download the photos. And these are all taken with Ricoh Theta S cameras, 360 cameras. So if you want to view them on your desktop, they have a free app you can download to see them natively in that 360 format. And I would imagine once you download it, you could probably do some editing on the photos, but not in Sims. You cannot edit or draw up or mark up any of it. So, yeah?
I see you did lab-based. What about fume hoods, benches, or other lab equipment? Are you tracking that at all?
We don't currently track assets. We have a subroom type that says fume hood. So if it's like against the wall, we can make that its own space and mark it in the data type as a fume hood. But I know we do have people interested in potentially tracking assets, which is something we could grow and possibly do in the future.
We do track fume hoods though in our Revit models.
Yeah, the Revit models, yeah,
Revit models, you just don't end up in Sims.
yeah. Yeah?
For room numbering, if you're getting a project done by an AE firm, are you expecting them to populate their drawings with your room numbers? Or do you just take their information and then basically assign a room number based on your?
We try ahead of time to work with any architects in the design stage. It comes, hopefully, it should go to our architectural services team, and they do the room numbering. So I would imagine, come with their models.
They're contractually obligated to use our
Okay.
numbers.
Okay.
Yeah?
Your inventory update cycle, what is that like?
On the Med Center side, they give me a list of buildings every year that I do. If I get any type of renovation project request or anything like that, I just do it as it comes across my desk. I'm not as familiar on the academic side since I don't manage their data. I just manage the database for them. But in terms of the Med Center, I think I get to every building about every 3 years, or when they have a project.
You don't do an annual confirmation of the data?
Actually, I did forget to mention that. The Med Center used to do an annual audit just for their College of Medicine, not for the patient care side. So I would pull all of the data and send it out, break it up by department and send it out to them, and they would just basically verify the data, if it needs to be updated or if it's still good, and then it would all come back to me and I would just update as needed. Because of some changes in personnel over there, it's kind of fallen off of their radar to do this. We're also doing some other projects like with the research groups on how they classify their data. So they're going through and updating their own data and passing that along to me. But yeah, whether or not we continue doing an annual College of Medicine audit is, I'm not sure where that stands right now.
Do you have to report that on any sort of a scheduled basis to your state?
Our state requires an annual, basically every building and every space that we have. The state requires an annual report, so all of that goes to them. Any other questions? Yeah?
When you did the research lab vacancies, are those assigned a unique number?
Yeah, we have we have subroom numbers, so they'll maintain the main room number, and then they'll have basically it's same thing that we do with cubes.
Two levels, you actually have two floors.
Yeah, well, it's considered part of the room number. I'm trying to see if I can, yeah, like here. Well, in this case, it's a staff office, but we do it the same with the research labs. We break them up, so that room number, as you can see here, it's 502-03. So we do that the same with the bays, research bays, when we break them up. They retain the main room number, and then they get added that sub-room number.
And you don't do a grid?
Pardon?
You don't do a grid?
A grid?
Like J1A? Like O1A, or you just are doing dashes?
Well, it goes through our architectural services team. They have a room numbering convention that they maintain, and so they make all those sub-room numbers.
And is it an arbitrary calculation of square footage for that subroom?
At least in our med center research, all of those are Revit drawings, so they determine what the polylines are, and from there they get the area. I don't know how you divide up a room.
We generally buy the half bay, so it's half the bench and half of the workspace. That way it's kind of at the smallest level that can be divided.
Let's see.
So if it's all one PI, they can all be assigned to that one PI, but if there's 5 PIs, they kind of get the exact space that they have. They're very, the research on that side is very metric driven. So how many dollars you bring in versus how much square footage you're using.
Okay, here's a sample of some of our research bays. So that highlighted portion shows you what all is contained in that space or in that room number. So we do get basic information also from our Revit drawings. We get like the plumbing, the fume hoods, furniture, that type of thing. So that helps a lot too with determining what type of room it is.
So do you roll those spaces up by department, or how does that work?
It depends who's asking for what. A lot of departments want to know exactly what their spaces are. So yeah, we can pull the data any way we want. We can pull by the department and just say, give me all of the Department of Urology's space. Or we can say, give me this whole floor. Whoever's in this floor, I can just pull by the floor. So I can pull it just about any way somebody asks for it.
So those labs are not assigned to any one particular department?
It really varies. Like this is a pretty large one, so I can actually go over here and find out who it's assigned to. Okay, so in this case, it's all, well, I should have known in this building, it's all Comprehensive Cancer Center. But we do have other buildings where a full lab might be split up, and you can just use this theming option and show, well, which ones are Department of Plastic Surgery, which ones are, this other department. So you can visually see that, and then you can do reports from here. You can even turn this on, like the total area, but this is across the whole floor plan. So you can see each org in that floor. You can see how much total area they have. And you can do that for any of the data attributes. So if you want to look at all the faculty offices, you can see how much total square footage is on that floor is faculty offices. Yeah?
That's a strange question. I just noticed on your print, your bay numbers are like 08, 11. But your
Mhm.
room numbers, they're 351, 08. Is Sims concatenating that, or does that happen in Revit? Or how do you do
I think
that?
all the room numbers are determined in Revit. They're all assigned in Revit. And then Sims just pulls all that in.
So is there like a alias that you're using on your drawings? 3501-11, but in your drawings, it's showing just 11. I was just curious how that worked.
I assume that's in the drawing?
Yeah, so the room number is 351-01, but the tag is only reporting the sub number, just because
So
it would get really crowded with all those
Yeah.
phone numbers.
This is all public facing.
No, Sims is only accessible to somebody with OSU credentials. Our GIS map is public. Anybody can access the GIS map, but yeah, all of this, the floor plans, data, all of that, you have to have OSU credentials to log in.
Are you, with the space audit that you do every 3 years, are you finding that you're getting a feedback loop by people using that platform to tell you where updates are needed?
Yeah, when we do audits or just in general, when people are looking at the data, they do like to tell us when we have bad data. Yeah, so.
I mean, we appreciate that, and we're trying to formalize that feedback loop to where the public is more of our eyes than just doing the walking.
Well, yeah, the idea with the audit was that they would hopefully look at the floor plans and actually look at the data that we're giving them and verify it. Whether or not they actually do, if they're rubber stamping it, I can't verify that. But that's why we add then my doing building audits, is to go out and look at the space myself. Another idea is that by only having a handful of us be able to edit these spaces, is that controls those definitions. Like, one person may think this room is one type, but somebody else thinks it's something else. Or they may not, look to see that we have a fume hood as a subroom type, and so they don't mark that. So we definitely control who can edit it, but any OSU user can look at it. Yes?
On the door to room 351E, you have X's on it. What does that represent?
I actually don't know. Oh, a cage? Okay.
Oh, okay, cage door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes people remove doors, like at our campus, and we struggle with how to do it. I thought we were.
We would just get rid of the door. And
Yeah,
this-
like-
This should all be, but as it is
I
existing.
mean, like the frame's still there, but they just take the door off.
Yeah, we have this room here, 51H. You see that there's no door swing on it. And then like this one does have a door swing.
Okay.
So,
You remove the door swing if there's no door.
There's a separate family that's just for a frame. Where they
Yeah.
took this, of course, we see that all the time too.
Yeah, the door just ends up missing. I hope it's not a fire door.
well, when I started doing walking building and doing the audits, I just went myself and just updated the data. But oftentimes I would start seeing these architectural things. Well, hey, they're missing the emergency eye wash here. So we've started actually taking either Tiffany back there or one of the architectural students, taking them with me when I do those walkthroughs. So I look at just the data, they look at all the architectural features. They make sure the doors are right, the room numbers are right, all the plumbing is correct. So that has helped get us better data. Any other questions? Yeah?
What's your criteria to justify the 360 photo overall? Obviously, you don't have it for every row.
No, we are definitely still building that library. Yeah, it started with the architectural services team doing it for their purposes, and so I jumped on the bandwagon, and my justification was for public spaces. And also my thought was public safety. So public safety could look at a 360 photo, see if it's a solid door, see if there's, a glass view through. Like I mentioned in the CFTA conference where I got the idea, somebody was doing it, their EHS team was doing it for labs, so for lab safety. So it has more uses than what we've even thought of so far.
May I add one thing?
Yeah.
I think the Office of Distance Learning also uses that to, if someone's trying to plan an actual
Yeah.
meeting or whatever, you can see the classroom.
We did borrow, our classroom services team was doing this separately on their own, so we borrowed all of their classroom photos to add to our library. They were doing it so professors could look at a room to see what type of equipment it had, if it was going to meet their needs for a class before they signed up for the room. So that was another use for it.
We are out of time right now, but Megan will be around if anybody has any questions. And thank you, Megan.
Thank you.